Chapter 430. The slightly plump woman went straight to the point. We suspect that you are related to the murder of Bufan, a disciple of the Sky Gold sect. Please follow me back to the 10th hunting island to assist in the investigation. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. The 10th hunting island was not to be trifled with, and the Sky Gold sect was a colossus in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Mr. Mo killed a disciple of the Sky Gold sect? This was going to be troublesome. Of course, as members of the Dragon Palace, they had to protect the Dragon King. Guojutao smiled apologetically. Manager Liu, you must have made a mistake. The Sky Gold sect is the boss of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. How could our island owner? Speaking up to here, Mo Shi waved his hand to stop Guojutao. Then he looked at the woman with a smile. He said slowly, "That's right, I killed him." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell silent. The members of the Dragon Palace knew that Mo Shi might have killed the disciple. However, they did not expect Mo Shi to admit it so easily. What kind of place was the Sky Gold sect? It was the boss of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Offending the Sky Gold sect was equivalent to offending the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect. These three sects were the top three forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Mr. Mo actually admitted it without even thinking about it. This was too bold of him. The woman was obviously stunned as well. She was expecting the island owner of the first hunting island to quibble. She was very experienced in dealing with people like him. She had thought of dozens of explanations and methods to deal with Mo Shi's quibbling. Therefore, she came here with a well-thought-out plan. However, she did not expect Mo Shi to admit it directly. This caught her off guard. However, since he had admitted it, things would be easier. Since you've admitted it, it's even easier. You don't have to go to the 10th hunting island. Just follow me to the Sky Gold sect. I'll hand you over to them. The woman's expression and tone were icy cold. The disappearance of the Sky Gold sect disciple on the 10th hunting island had nothing to do with them. After all, they had signed a life-and-death agreement before entering the hunting ground. However, the Heavenly Gold sect was a massive force. If they really wanted to say that they were related to the 10th hunting ground, the 10th hunting ground wouldn't dare to say anything. Moreover, if the 10th hunting ground could make use of this opportunity to establish a relationship with the Sky Gold sect, it would be greatly beneficial to the future development of the 10th hunting ground. Therefore, when the owner of the 10th hunting ground learned of this matter, he immediately ordered his men to bring Mo Shi back for interrogation. If it was really Mo Shi's doing, he would hand him over to the Sky Gold sect. Now that Mo Shi had admitted it, they would bring him directly to the Sky Gold sect. Seeing this, Guojulong wanted to step forward and stop them. Mo Shi smiled faintly and said, "I will go to the Heavenly Gold sect. However, I have to rephrase my words." The woman was surprised again. This guy killed a disciple of the Sky Gold sect and still wanted to go to the Sky Gold sect. He was not playing by the rules at all. She snorted coldly. "No matter what you say, you have to follow me to the Heavenly Gold sect today." Mo Shi smiled faintly and continued, "In a few days, I will kill my way to the Sky Gold sect and wipe them all out." After hearing Mo Shi's words, the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace all looked at Mo Shi in disbelief. No matter how much they trusted Mo Shi, how could Dragon Palace be compared with the Sky Gold sect? Not to mention killing his way to the Sky Gold sect and wiping them all out. The woman was also stunned by Mo Shi's words. Was this guy too arrogant or crazy? He looked at Mo Shi from head to toe, and then looked at Mo Shi's workshop. She sneered and said, "Ha, just with your number 1 hunting island?" Mo Shi shook his head and said, "Just with me. Ha 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 ha." The woman could not help but laugh. "Young man, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I admit that you have some strength. However, you want to challenge the entire Sky Gold sect by yourself? Do you think you are Han Jianxing?" Just as she said this, her multifunctional watch rang. The woman answered the video call. It was the owner of the number 10 hunting island. The woman quickly stopped smiling and said respectfully, "Hello, island owner." The owner of the number 10 hunting island asked, Have you arrived at the number 1 hunting island? The woman glanced at Mo Sure and replied, Yes. I have found the owner of the number 1 hunting island and he has admitted his crime. I plan to take him to the Sky Gold sect now. The owner of the number 10 hunting island suddenly changed his expression and said, Don't go to the Sky Gold sect. Come back right now. The woman was stunned. Island owner. What about me? Just come back when I tell you to. Cut the crap. The woman was stunned again. Why did the island owner suddenly become so fierce? He was not like this before. Okay, island owner, I'll come back right now. As for the owner of the number 1 hunting island, the owner of the number 10 hunting island said, Don't worry about it. Come back right now. The woman frowned slightly. She had rushed here for half a day, and now she had come back empty-handed? The island owner did not hide from the others and said directly, According to the news I just received, the Sky Gold sect has met with a great disaster. They lost 2/3 of their elite disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield. The Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect also lost 2/3 of their elite disciples, and their sect masters are still uncontactable. It is very likely that they have all died in the ancient dragon battlefield. Hearing this, the woman was shocked. What was going on? The owner of the number 10 hunting island continued. According to reliable sources, the owner of the number 1 hunting island has been to the ancient dragon battlefield before. When the woman heard this, her expression immediately changed. She took 2 steps back subconsciously and looked at Mo Sure. No matter how stupid she was, she could connect the dots based on the news that the owner of the number 1 hunting island might have something to do with this. 2/3 of the elite disciples of the 3 sects were hundreds of level 5 and above hunters. There were even 2 grand desolate masters who did not return. But only the owner of the number 1 hunting island had returned. What did this mean? In addition, the owner of the number 1 hunting island had said that he was going to kill his way to the Sky Gold sect and wipe them out. This, she guessed at a result that was unthinkable. If she heard someone else say this 2 minutes ago, she would only find it funny and think that the person was crazy. But now, things were developing in an even more ridiculous direction. What she had seen and heard with her own eyes was all true. One could imagine how much of a psychological impact this would have on her. Her face turned pale, and sweat started to form on her forehead. She had looked down on this small island and the owner of the number 1 hunting island. Now, it seemed that she was really digging her own grave. Digging her own grave. She could not help but take another step back. She said incoherently to Mo Sure, Hug. Hug? Mo Sure sneered. You want to hug me now? It's too late. Chapter 431. After the woman realized that everything was done by Mo Sure, she was no longer as arrogant as before. Her face was pale, and she subconsciously took 2 steps back. She stuttered, Hug, hug. Now you want to hug? It's too late. Mo Sure sneered. In his right hand, a genetic weapon had already condensed. It was a huge axe with a very flashy design. However, Mo Sure's genetic weapon was completely different from the flame dragon axe. At this moment, the axe was completely black. In the middle of the axe was a huge skull. The eyes of the skull were flashing with a fiery red light. The handle of the axe was in the shape of a human leg bone. The entire axe gave off a demonic aura. Mo Sure's entire body was filled with a bloodthirsty aura. Seeing this, the woman was even more frightened. I'm sorry. As she spoke, she saw that Mo Sure had already raised his axe. She quickly turned around and fled. However, just as she turned around, she felt a chill on her neck. She felt that she was flying. She saw that everything around her was moving away from her. Even her body was moving away from her. Turned out that she was not flying. Instead, it was her head that was flying. At this point, this arrogant woman could no longer be arrogant. Guojutao and the others beside Mo Sure were shocked when they saw this scene. This woman was a level 5 desolate hunter. However, she was killed by Mr. Mo in one move. Mr. Mo had only been in the ancient dragon battlefield for 2 months, and his strength was already so strong. Mo Shi kept his genetic weapon and turned to Guojutao. Guard the base well. I'm going out. Guojutao quickly nodded. Yes. After speaking, he raised his head. Mo Shi had already disappeared. Guojutao looked at the corpse lying in a pool of blood and could not help but sigh. Mr. Mo was definitely the most talented person he had ever seen in his life. There was no other. Not only was his leveling speed terrifying, but his combat strength was also terrifying. He was only a level 2 Desolate Hunter, but he was able to kill a level 5 Desolate Hunter who was 3 levels above him. This was just the tip of the iceberg. The Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood, and Heavenly Water, the 3 colossi of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, had 2/3 of their elite disciples. Even the sect masters of the Heavenly Wood and Heavenly Water sects, existences at the Grand Desolate Master Realm, had been killed by Mr. Mo. This was almost like killing an enemy who was a whole realm higher. If it were anyone else, it would be unimaginable. But Mr. Mo did it. This was truly terrifying. With such a Mr. Mo, why would the Dragon Palace not be able to grow stronger? Hunting Island number 10. After the island master finished his conversation with the woman, he felt uneasy. He called the security chief of Hunting Island number 10 and said, "Ask all the hunters outside to come back. Also, ask some mercenaries to come back." The security captain was somewhat puzzled. "Island master, we have more than 100 desolate hunters on the 10th hunting island. It is more than enough to protect the entire hunting island. Could it be that the enemy is a grand desolate master?" The owner of the 10th hunting island shook his head. "Not enough. Hire more mercenaries." "Then, how much?" The owner of the 10th hunting island replied, "Hire all the desolate hunters. The more the better." The security captain was even more surprised. Desolate hunters are very expensive. The owner of the 10th hunting island shook his head. "Do it." The security captain did not know what kind of crisis the island was facing, but he still nodded his head doubtfully. "Yes, island master." At the same time, in the Heavenly Water sect, after the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect returned, the entire passageway leading up and down the mountain had been sealed. The teleportation hall had also been closed. Even a bird could not enter the Heavenly Water sect. At this moment, without the sect master, only a few elders were left to manage the situation. "Elder, should we activate the protective mountain array?" a disciple asked. The 4th elder shook his head. "The protective mountain array consumes too much energy. If we can avoid activating it, we should try not to. It won't be too late to activate it when the enemy invades." Their protective mountain array had been set up by their sect master at a great cost. It could withstand the attack of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. And such a level of protective mountain array consumed a terrifying amount of origin crystals. Every minute it was activated, it would consume tens of thousands of origin crystals. Even though the Heavenly Water sect was the 3rd largest sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, they only had less than 10 million origin crystals in their storage. How could they withstand such a torment? Hence, unless it was a critical moment, they would not dare to activate the protective mountain array. The 4th elder continued, "Increase the number of people patrolling day and night. Once this person appears, alert immediately." As he spoke, he turned on his multifunction watch and projected Mo Shi's face. Everyone firmly imprinted Mo Shi's ordinary-looking face in their minds. Half an hour after the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect became nervous, a figure suddenly appeared in the Heavenly Water sect. This person was none other than Mo Shi. The disciples of the Heavenly Water sect had underestimated Mo Shi's teleportation ability. Hence, they did not have time to activate the protective mountain array. The moment Mo Shi appeared, his dragon consciousness spread out. Boom, 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 boom. Instantly, all the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect who were below the level of Desolate Hunter exploded. It was like setting off firecrackers during the new year. When their bodies exploded, the blood mist that rose up was like the smoke from setting off firecrackers. In the Heavenly Water sect, a Desolate Hunter had just raised his cup to drink water. Suddenly, boom, not far away, a level 10 Desolate Hunter immediately exploded. The desolate hunter was shocked. "Oh no! There's an enemy attack!" Just as he opened his mouth, boom, 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 the bodies of the other disciples beside him also exploded one after another. In just a few seconds, all the desolate hunters around him had exploded into blood mist. The scene was so strange and horrifying that it was the first time he had seen something like this. The rest of the desolate hunters of the Heavenly Water sect were experiencing the same thing. They could only watch helplessly as their disciples and friends exploded into a bloody mist, unable to do anything about it. As for the desolate hunters, they watched helplessly as their disciples exploded into blood mist. The next moment it would be their turn. They all fled in panic. But could they escape? Mo Shi's dragon consciousness could cover a radius of 350 kilometers. Who among them could run 350 kilometers in a matter of seconds? Not a single one. When the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect saw this scene, he knew that the enemy had a powerful psyche master or even a spiritual psyche master. He could not help but feel despair. If the enemy only had a psyche master, it would be fine. If they had a spiritual psyche master, there was nothing they could do. This was because spiritual psyche masters were extremely rare. Even in the 1,000-year history of the Heavenly Water sect, there had only been one spiritual psyche master. Now, there was not even one spiritual psyche master in the sect. Chapter 432. The Heavenly Water sect did not even have a single spiritual psyche master. The first elder of the Heavenly Water sect was in despair. The Heavenly Water sect currently had about 100 hunters. The remaining 100,000 people were all scavenger hunters. Under the spiritual psyche attack of a spiritual psyche master, the hunters had no chance of surviving. If all the hunters died, they would only have about 100 hunters left. In that case, the Heavenly Water sect would have to wait for a long time before it could be revived. However, the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect soon realized that his worries were unfounded. This was because the 100 or so desolate hunters were about to die. The entire Heavenly Water sect was about to be destroyed, so there was no need to worry about revival. In just half a minute, the 100,000 hunters of the Heavenly Water sect had all exploded into a bloody mist. Mo Shi looked at the killing points in his mind. Killing points. 7831000. He frowned slightly. The hunters were really worthless. He had killed more than 100,000 hunters, but he had only obtained about 100 killing points. This meant that he could only obtain 1 killing point for every 1,000 hunters he killed. The fourth elder was a level 10 desolate hunter. Seeing that all the desolate hunter disciples had been killed, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. He was extremely furious. Under such circumstances, it was obvious that he could not escape. He ordered the hunters of the Heavenly Water sect, "Everyone, get ready to activate the mountain-destroying formation." The Heavenly Gold sect had a mountain-destroying formation other than the mountain protection formation. The mountain-destroying formation was equivalent to a self-destruct program. Once it exploded, the entire mountain would be razed to the ground. This was a method to perish together with the enemy. It was usually used to threaten enemies who were too powerful. The fourth elder looked at Mo Shi from afar. He was extremely indignant. "You killed more than 200 elite disciples of the Heavenly Water sect, 3 of our elders, a sect leader, and more than 100,000 of our ordinary disciples. Now, you still want to kill us all? If that's the case, we'll perish together with you." Once the mountain-destroying formation is activated, the entire mountain will be razed to the ground. You won't be able to escape. Mo Shi stopped and looked at the fourth elder. He smiled faintly. "You can try." As he spoke, he moved. Poof! A desolate hunter was pierced by his sharp claws. Poof! Another hunter's head flew into the air. Seeing this, the Tianshui sect's fourth elder roared, "Activate the mountain-destroying formation." Immediately, the elite disciples of the Heavenly Water sect raised their right hands with bloodshot eyes. Genetic martial arts condensed in their right hands. Next, their genetic weapons lit up with red and white light. This red and white light shot out from their genetic weapons and gathered in the sky. Then, a blood-red light shield slowly formed in the sky and covered the ground. Mosher sneered when he saw this. You want to die with me? Are you worthy? As he spoke, his figure flashed again. Poof! A desolate hunter, who was holding an energy weapon high in the air, had his back slashed open. Chi! The other desolate hunter's entire right arm was chopped off by Mosher's sharp claws. At this moment, his entire right arm was 3 times thicker than usual. It was covered with black scales. Under the sunlight, the sharp claws at the end of the claws shone with a cold light. It looked exceptionally sharp. Shwa! A claw slashed towards a level 4 desolate hunter. That level 4 desolate hunter hurriedly raised his energy weapon and tried to block it. However, when his energy weapon met Mosher's dragon claws, it was as if he had met a high-speed train. He was immediately sent flying hundreds of meters away. He crashed through 5 walls before falling to the ground. There wasn't a single bone in his body that was in perfect condition. Mosher kept killing these desolate hunters. Not to mention those who were 1 or 2 levels higher than him. Even those who were 3 or 5 levels higher than him, or even 6 or 7 levels higher than him, were like paper under his sharp claws. And without the support of these disciples, the energy shield in the sky that was covering the ground quickly retreated. Seeing this, the 4th elder's eyes turned bloodshot. He roared, "Kid, you've gone too far." As he spoke, the energy weapon on his right arm shone brightly. The red and white light shrouded his entire body. The next moment, a red and white pillar of light shot up into the sky from his body. In the sky, the energy shield that was about to dissipate turned upside down once again. And this time, the speed was more than 10 times faster than before. It turned out that the 4th elder could activate the mountain-destroying formation by himself. And the speed at which he activated it was much, much faster than when the other disciples worked together. It was just that this was at the cost of his life. And when he activated the energy shield, it could not be interrupted. Mosher saw that the energy shield was quickly descending, and his dragon claws slashed towards the 4th elder. Unexpectedly, the 4th elder's body was covered with a fiery red energy. When Mosher's dragon claws slashed on it, it was as if they were slashing on metal. Could not cause any fatal damage. The 4th elder's eyes were wide open. He laughed loudly as if he had gone crazy. "Kid, when I activated the mountain-destroying formation at the cost of my life, it could not be interrupted at all. You will be buried with us, ha 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 ha." Mosher saw that the energy shield was less than 10 meters away from completely covering the entire mountain. He snorted coldly, and his body suddenly changed. The bones in his body kept cracking. His body was rapidly growing. The clothes on his body were constantly making hissing sounds, as if they were bursting apart from being stretched too much. The dragon scales on his right claw also started to spread all over his body. In just a few seconds, he had turned into a giant dragon that was more than 120 meters long. When everyone saw this, they were all dumbfounded. Giant dragon. There really is a giant dragon. The giant dragons did not go extinct. The 4th elder of the heavenly water sect was also in a daze. The knowledge that he had received since he was young did not know that the giant dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. And based on the current situation, whether it was now or in the future, there would not be any giant dragons in this world. But now, a living giant dragon was standing in front of him. This was a strong blow to his worldview. The giant dragons had not gone extinct. The giant dragons really existed. Mosher turned into a giant dragon. He felt that his body was full of surging power. He wanted to roar to the sky. But this was not the ancient battlefield of the giant dragons. If he was too high profile, it would inevitably cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. So Mosher suppressed the urge to roar. He flapped his wings and flew towards the 4th elder of the heavenly water sect. Faced with the attack of a giant creature that was more than 100 meters long, the 4th elder panicked. Think about it. No matter who it was, how could anyone not panic when faced with a giant dragon that was more than 100 meters long and whose head was bigger than a house? Chapter 433. Shur transformed into a 100-meter-long dragon and flew towards the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect. Although the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect was prepared to die, he still panicked in the face of such a huge monster. He wanted to turn around and escape. It was like a person who wanted to commit suicide, but faced with the sudden appearance of a giant python, he would instinctively feel fear. He was not afraid of death, but he was afraid of the giant python. However, the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect could not back down now. He was in an invincible state when he was burning his life to activate the mountain-destroying array. However, he could not move or stop. Once he moved or stopped, he would immediately explode and die. He could only suppress the fear in his heart and hope that he was in an invincible state. He hoped that the dragon would not be able to hurt him when he was in an invincible state. Rumble, just as he was thinking about this, Shur's right claw had already grabbed him. Even the ground under his feet, which was more than 100 square meters, was shattered by his claw. As for the red and white energy surrounding the first elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect, it could not stop Shur at all. What a joke! Shur was in his dragon form. The fourth elder's invincible state was only relative to humans. Hence, his invincible state could not stop Shur. He was crushed into meat paste by Shur's claw. As soon as the fourth elder died, the huge energy shield that was about to cover the entire mountain dissipated in the sky. When the other elders saw this, they looked at the giant dragon that Shur had transformed into and spat out a ball of flame energy. More than 50 desolate hunters screamed in pain in the flames. They were filled with despair. Facing such a powerful creature, they couldn't even bring themselves to perish together with it. They could only watch as it massacred the last few elite disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect. However, these elders did not have to despair very soon. They would not feel despair again in their lives. This was because Shur's sharp claws had already reached their heads. In less than 10 minutes, the Heavenly Water Sect, which was ranked third in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, was destroyed by Shur. From the looks of it, the so-called rankings and the so-called forces were worthless in the face of absolute strength. After wiping out all the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect, Shur searched through their stores to see if there was anything of value. In the end, he discovered that there were over 1 million origin crystals in the Heavenly Water Sect. They could be used as currency on the Flaming Dawn continent. Generally speaking, electronic currency was used when purchasing ordinary items. However, if one wanted to purchase some extremely precious items, they would have to use crystal source stones. There were already quite a lot of 10,000 crystal origin stones. Shur transformed into his human form and took out a set of clean clothes from the space. Transforming felt good for a moment, and after that he changed his clothes. It was indeed a little awkward. After changing his clothes, Shur stored the source crystals in his micro-world. Then, with a thought, he disappeared from the spot. At this point, this great sect that had prospered for thousands of years had been destroyed by Shur alone. 10 minutes later, Shur's figure appeared in the Skywood sect again. The Heavenly Wood sect's situation was similar to the Heavenly Water sect's. Therefore, the process of the two sects' destruction was very similar. Both were killed by Shur's dragon will first. Then, when they wanted to activate the protective formation, they discovered that Shur was already in the mountains. Then, Shur transformed into a huge dragon and started a massacre. Therefore, the Skywood sect was destroyed. In just an hour, the second and third ranked sects of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud continent had been destroyed. Then, Shur put away the source crystals in the Skywood sect and disappeared again. At the same time, in the Skygold sect, they still had a level 1 spiritual psyche master and 2 level 1 desolate masters. Therefore, they weren't particularly panicked. However, that didn't mean that they didn't take it seriously. In the Skygold sect's meeting hall, the sect master, grand elder, and the other 5 elders all had solemn expressions. This time, we lost 2/3 of our elite disciples. The sect's strength will definitely be greatly reduced. We just received news that the Heavenly Water Sect was destroyed half an hour ago. The person who destroyed the Heavenly Water Sect was that Shur. The great elder gnashed his teeth in anger. If there was anyone who hated Moshe the most, it was naturally the grand elder. Firstly, his illegitimate son had been killed by Moshe. Naturally, he hated Moshe. Secondly, he had brought so many elite disciples with him, but they had all died in the ancient battlefield of dragons because of Moshe. Of course, he didn't know that those disciples were actually killed by Moshe. However, if it weren't for the fact that they wanted to kill Moshe, those disciples wouldn't have entered the 4th district and wouldn't have been surrounded by the huge dragon evil spirits in the 4th district. Therefore, this debt naturally had to be placed on Moshe's head. He didn't think that if he hadn't taken the risk to bring his disciples into the 4th district to kill Moshe, those disciples wouldn't have been surrounded by the huge dragon evil spirits. The sect master asked, "The heavenly water sect was destroyed by that kid alone?" He felt that it was a little ridiculous to ask this question. A sect ranked 3rd in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud had been destroyed by a mere level 2 desolate hunter. Even novels wouldn't dare to brag like this. But now, such a thing had actually happened. How could he not feel that it was ridiculous? The elder who reported nodded. "I just saw the news. It was sent by a disciple we sent to the Heavenly Water Sect for an exchange. It's been half an hour." The sect leader furrowed his brows. "This brat is actually so strong that he can single-handedly destroy an entire sect?" The Grand Elder said, "Previously, it was our Skygold, Skywood, and Skywater that had a grudge with that kid. Now that Skywood and Skywater no longer have a Grand Desolate Master overseeing them, that kid's next target is likely to be the Skywood sect." Everyone nodded. The sect master hurriedly said, "Contact the Skywood sect immediately and tell them to make preparations." The Grand Elder nodded and immediately dialed the Skywood sect's Grand Elder's number on his multifunctional watch. After a minute, there was no answer. He frowned slightly and then dialed the Skywood sect's second Elder's number. However, after another minute, there was still no answer. Then, he called the other higher-ups of the Skywood sect, but there was still no answer. At this moment, it wasn't just him. Everyone's expression turned ugly. Since so many higher-ups of the Skywood sect didn't answer their calls, it was obvious that something had happened. The entire conference hall was silent. After a full 5 minutes, the Skygold sect master finally spoke. "It seems that something has happened to the Skywood sect. Notify all disciples to enter a level 1 state of alert. Activate the protective array immediately." "Activate it now? Wouldn't it be too wasteful if that kid doesn't come?" An elder said. "Even if it's a waste of large amounts of crystal origin stones, it's still better than letting that kid cause trouble in the Skygold sect." Chapter 434. From the Skygold sect's point of view, Moshe destroying the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect sounded unbelievable. However, this was already the limit. He could only bully the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect because they did not have a Grand Desolate Master. However, the Skygold sect had 2 Grand Desolate Masters. They did not believe that Moshe could challenge these 2 Grand Desolate Masters alone. Although Moshe had killed an evil dragon in the 4th district of the ancient dragon battlefield, he was indeed very strong. However, it was obvious that his saber had an absolute restraining effect on the giant dragon evil spirit. If he fought against a Grand Desolate Master, he would not be that strong. Moreover, the Skygold sect had the Mountain Protection Array. The Mountain Protection Array was said to be able to withstand the attacks of a Grand Desolate Master. It could also withstand teleportation skills. Now that they had activated the Mountain Protection Array in advance, no matter how strong that kid was, he would not be able to break it. A 2-meter-thick, earthy yellow light barrier rose slowly. It was like a huge bowl that covered the entire mountain. The Skygold sect's sect master felt more at ease. Even a Grand Desolate Master like him could not break this Mountain Protection Array. It was impossible for that kid to break it by force. The Skygold sect's Grand Elder had a fierce look in his eyes. His thoughts were slightly different from the sect master's. Just blocking that kid was not enough. He was thinking of a way to kill that brat and avenge his son. At the same time, Moshe had arrived 5 kilometers away from the Skygold sect. He flapped his demonic dragon wings and looked down at the earthy yellow light barrier. He sneered in his heart. With a thought, he released the Sea Dragon clone. The current Sea Dragon clone had already reached a length of more than 1,300 meters. After Emoshur destroyed the Skywood sect, his kill points had reached more than 1,000. With this, he had become a level 3 Desolate Master. As the Sea Dragon clone had swallowed 2 Dragon Ball fragments, it had also become a level 3 Desolate Beast when Emoshur had become a level 3 Desolate Beast. It was equivalent to a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. There was not a single level 3 Grand Desolate Master in the entire 16 prefectures. Therefore, the current Azure Dragon clone was absolutely invincible in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud. Almost everyone in the Heavenly Gold sect was looking up at the sky. When they saw Emoshur appear alone, they sneered in their hearts. Was this guy here to die? However, they soon discovered that a gigantic creature over 1,000 meters long had appeared beside Emoshur. The head of this creature looked even more ferocious than the heads of giant dragons they had seen in historical records. Its python-like body gave off a mysterious, terrifying, and powerful feeling. Everyone from the Heavenly Gold sect was shocked when they saw the creature. None of them had ever seen such a creature before. However, they could feel how tiny and vulnerable they were in front of this creature. At this moment, they could only place all their hopes on the protective mountain array that they had already activated. The mountain protecting array was a powerful array formation that could withstand the attacks of Grand Desolate Masters. No matter how strong this creature was, it was unlikely that it could break through the mountain protecting array. At this moment, Emoshur ordered the Azure Dragon clone, "Break the array." The Azure Dragon clone immediately slithered down from the sky. Its tree-like legs carried thick and sharp claws as it slashed at the yellowish-brown mountain-protecting array. It did not use any energy. Rumble, the 2-meter-thick yellowish-brown energy barrier, was shattered by the claw. There was no suspense. Everyone present, including the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder and their sect master, had a terrible expression. This was a barrier that could withstand the attacks of Grand Desolate Masters. However, it was shattered by this creature's claw. Furthermore, it did not even use any energy. It had reached such a powerful level with just its physical strength. Just how strong was this creature? Actually, the Heavenly Gold sect's mountain-protecting array could only withstand the attacks of level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. Could not even withstand the attacks of level 2 Grand Desolate Masters, let alone the Azure Dragon clone, which was equivalent to a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Emoshur stared coldly at the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder. He ordered the Azure Dragon clone, "Destroy him." The Azure Dragon clone immediately slithered down. The giant claw slashed at the mountain where the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was. Rumble, the entire mountain where the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was collapsed. The Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was crushed into meat paste by the terrifying power of the claw. The Great Elder, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was killed instantly. Seeing this, the Heavenly Gold sect's sect master was filled with regret. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known this would happen, he would definitely not have allowed the Great Elder to seek revenge on Emoshur. Now, not only was the Great Elder dead, but the entire Heavenly Gold sect was also destroyed. Speaking of which, who would have thought that a mere desolate hunter would have such a terrifying and powerful mutated desolate beast by his side? Now that things had come to this, it was too late to say anything. The only thing he could do was to escape. As long as he could keep his life, with his strength as a Grand Desolate Master, he would be able to establish another powerful sect in the 16 prefectures in no time. Thinking of this, he turned around to escape. However, at this moment, the Sea Dragon clone had already blocked his path. Without any hesitation, the huge tail smashed towards the Heavenly Gold sect's sect master. Seeing that it was too late to dodge, the Heavenly Gold sect's sect master hurriedly activated his life-saving trump card. Not just one, but a total of 5. The 5 life-saving trump cards emitted 5 different colors of light: white, green, black, red, and yellow. Obviously, these were the colors of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The 5 types of energy multiplied and multiplied endlessly. Around his body, a 5-colored light shield was formed. However, in the next moment, Rumble, the sea dragon clone's huge tail had already smashed into his position. Instantly, the mountain he was on crumbled. Huge rocks were sent flying in all directions by the force of the impact. The entire mountain was like a sand sculpture, splattering in all directions. As for the heavenly gold sect's great elder, he was smashed into meat paste. The 5-colored light barrier around his body didn't even last for 0.01 seconds. At this point, the 2 powerful figures guarding the heavenly gold sect had both been killed instantly. The rest of the heavenly gold sect's disciples felt their legs turn to jelly and their hearts tremble. Even the sect master and great elder, who were the most powerful in the sect, had been killed instantly. What chance did they have? However, Emoshur did not let the sea dragon clone attack again. Instead, he used his dragon consciousness. He instantly captured the spiritual psyche masters in the heavenly gold sect. Boom, boom, the 2 spiritual psyche masters' bodies exploded instantly. Then, they were all the spiritual psyche masters in the heavenly gold sect. The spiritual psyche masters' bodies also exploded continuously like firecrackers during the new year. When the heavenly gold sect's disciples saw this strange scene, they all screamed and turned to escape. Chapter 435. The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder and Sect Master were killed instantly. Their spiritual Psyche Masters and Great Psyche Masters were also killed. Following that, the Sky Gold sect's hunters also exploded. This caused the entire Sky Gold sect to fall into a terrifying atmosphere. No one knew if they would be the next to explode. Under such a terrifying atmosphere, there was nothing else they could do. The only thing they could do was to run. In their opinion, they would only not explode if they escaped. Therefore, all the Sky Gold sect disciples fled in all directions. However, how could their speed be faster than Emoshur's dragon consciousness? The dragon consciousness covered a radius of 350 kilometers. None of them had the ability to travel 350 kilometers in an instant. Boom, 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 boom. Within a few minutes, all the scavengers among the 100,000 disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect had exploded. The entire mountain of the Heavenly Gold sect, as well as a few nearby mountains, were dyed red. Other than red, no other colors could be seen. The blood turned into a blood-red mist that covered a radius of more than 50 kilometers. Even the cultivators, who were more than 100 kilometers away, could smell the stench of blood here. As for the remaining Sky Gold sect's hunters, they were already scared out of their wits and were fleeing in all directions. However, they still could not escape Emoshur's pursuit. Emoshur transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon again. Now, he had evolved into a rank 3 bloodthirsty demon dragon. His true combat strength was invincible under the Grand Desolate Master level. These 100 or so hunters did not even have the will to resist. He had easily killed them in just over 10 minutes. Now, the Sky Gold sect was destroyed. From the time he went to the Heavenly Water sect to the destruction of the Sky Gold sect, it had only been 3 hours. No one would have thought that the 3 major sects that had dominated the 16 governors of the remote cloud region for thousands of years would be destroyed in just 3 hours. At this moment, Emoshur transformed into his human form again and changed into a new set of clothes. He looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points. 430100000. He shook his head. For the current him, killing hunters was no longer enough. He had to kill desolate hunters in order to obtain enough killing points. However, there were not many hunters on the flaming origin continent. In the entire continent, there were at most 10,000 of them. Moreover, these people didn't provoke him. If he killed them as he pleased, how would he be any different from the real bloodthirsty demon dragon? It seemed like he could only head to the 20th hunting ground next. In the 20th hunting ground, the strongest beast was a level 10 mutated wild beast. Most of the desolate beasts were mutated desolate beasts of level 1 and above. That was the best place to get killing points. But before going there, Emoshur wanted to find a way to make the spirit-engulfing beast spit out the dragon will that it had swallowed. He could also devour these dragon wills and raise his own dragon will's level. After sorting out his thoughts, Mo Shur searched through the heavenly gold sect again. Only then did he return to the base. Mo Shur communicated with the spirit-engulfing beast king and asked, "How do I make you spit out all the dragon intent you've devoured?" The spirit-engulfing beast also possessed a small portion of its dragon will. It communicated with Mo Shur, "As long as the master is willing, I can spit it out at any time." So simple? Mo Shur stared at the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast immediately replied, "It's that simple. Then why didn't you say so before?" Mo Shur asked. The spirit-engulfing beast replied, "I used to be in the ancient dragon battlefield. I was sealed by a human at the ancient dragon battlefield. The seal affected my ability, so I couldn't spit it out. But now that I've left the ancient dragon battlefield, I can spit it out." Mo Shur was speechless. So it was that simple. "Then hurry up," Mo Shur said. The spirit-engulfing beast nodded and opened its mouth. More than a dozen tentacles came out of its mouth. At the same time, balls of dragon will floated out of its mouth. These dragon wills were different from the dragon spirits it had devoured before. They had no energy and could be directly devoured by Mo Shur's dragon will. Mo Shur immediately enveloped these dragon wills with his dragon will and activated the dragon will devour skill. Mo Shur didn't feel anything when he devoured the dragon wills. It was just that the dragon wills were getting stronger. In just 5 minutes, Mo Shur's dragon will was more than 10 times stronger than before. At the same time, a system notification popped up in his mind. Dragon will upgraded to level 8. Mo Shur couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Back at the ancient dragon battlefield, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured a lot of dragon spirits. Now, the dragon wills in its body were enormous. He had only devoured them for a few minutes, and it had already upgraded to level 8. It seemed that his dragon will would upgrade several levels if he devoured all of them. Half an hour later, the system notification popped up again. Dragon will upgraded to level 9. 2 hours later, the system notification popped up again. Dragon will upgraded to level 10. At this point, the spirit-engulfing beast finally stopped spitting out dragon wills. His body was a little weak, and it lay limp on the ground. It looked at Mo Shur with a pair of big, pitiful eyes. It was as if it was saying, "Master, I don't have any more." He stroked the spirit-engulfing beast's furry head and said, "You've worked hard. Go and rest." The spirit-engulfing beast nodded and got up weakly. It found a corner and curled up. At this time, Mo Shur's dragon will had reached the 10th level. He spread out his dragon will, and everything within a radius of 500 kilometers was under his control. A level 10 dragon will was equivalent to the spiritual will of a level 10 spiritual psychic. In this world, spiritual psychics were very rare to begin with. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2, but they were only level 1 spiritual psychics. It could be seen that Mo Shur's spiritual power was unrivaled. Moreover, a level 10 dragon will was able to directly blast apart the bodies of any desolate hunters below level 5. In this way, it was very beneficial for Mo Shur when he went to level 20 hunting grounds to collect kill points. After doing all this, Mo Shur once again rested in the base. Every day, he would watch the sunset, enjoy the sea breeze, and listen to the waves. It was a comfortable life. During the few days he rested, all the media in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud exploded. The news of the destruction of the Heavenly Gold Trisect spread like wildfire on the internet. Breaking news: Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood, and Heavenly Water Trisect destroyed. Breaking news: the top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud destroyed. Freezing 16 prefectures with 1 sword or making a comeback. Is it the loss of morals or the distortion of human nature? The destruction of the Heavenly Gold Trisect. Mo Shur looked at the news and laughed in his heart. "Senior Han Jianxing, I'm sorry. They thought you were the murderer and I couldn't help it." Although many people wanted to be famous, Mo Shur didn't want to be famous at the moment. He wanted to collect killing points. If everyone knew who he was, they would hide far away from him. How would he be able to kill them? " Chapter 436. In 3 days, the news of the destruction of the Skygold Trisect spread throughout the 16 prefectures. This shocked the entire 16 prefectures. When the various factions and sects learned of this news, they all retracted their sharp edges. After all, they knew that the 3 sects were usually arrogant, especially the Skygold sect. No matter what they did, they always pretended to be righteous and found a dignified reason. However, those who understood. Everyone knew that the Skygold sect wasn't anything good. However, the Skygold sect was too powerful and they didn't dare to voice their anger. Now that the Skygold sect was destroyed, they had to restrain themselves even though it was satisfying. If they were noticed by the ruthless person who destroyed the 3 sects, wouldn't their sects follow in the footsteps of the Skygold Trisect? At the same time, many people raised some guesses. They were guessing who the culprit was. Given the strength of the Skygold Trisect, it must be an incredible major faction to be able to destroy the 3 sects in a day. Perhaps it was another major faction on the continent. The continent was very big. There were at least 800 factions that were stronger than the Skygold Trisect. In front of such a major faction, the Skygold sect was an ant. However, even if a major faction came, there must be a large number of people to be able to destroy the 3 sects in a day. It was impossible that no one had seen such a huge commotion. Therefore, it couldn't be a major faction on the continent. It was very likely to be an unparalleled expert. If it was an unparalleled expert, it was very likely to be an expert from the 16 prefectures. This was because compared to the other prefectures, the 16 prefectures were relatively barren. Whether it was crystal source ores or other cultivation materials, they were pitifully scarce. Therefore, experts who were at least Grand Desolate Masters wouldn't come to the 16 prefectures. As for a local expert to be able to do this, at the thought of this, a figure appeared in everyone's mind. He looked like a scholar with a 3-meter-long giant sword beside him. The giant sword was 3 meters long in battle and 5 meters when used as a flying device. Chilling the 16 prefectures with a single sword, Han Jianxing. If there was anyone in the 16 prefectures who could do this, it would be Han Jianxing. A few decades ago, he had single-handedly destroyed 19 sections. At that time, he was already a Grade 1 Grand Desolate Master. Now that a few decades had passed, with his talent, it was not difficult for him to become a Grade 3 or even Grade 4 Grand Desolate Master. It was still a little too difficult for such an expert to destroy the Skygold Trisect in a single day. After all, there were more than 100,000 disciples in the 3 sections. Killing 300,000 people in one day, unless this person was a very strong spiritual reader master. Clearly, Han Jianxing was not one of them. However, Han Jianxing would go to the Ancient Dragon Battlefield every year. What kind of place was the Ancient Dragon Battlefield? It was a place that no hunters below level 5 dared to casually enter. Moreover, he had gone to District 4 of the Ancient Dragon Battlefield. It was said that the 4th region of the Ancient Dragon Battlefield was a place that even Grand Desolate Masters did not dare to casually enter. It was no wonder that such a person could destroy the Celestial Gold Trisect. In the Liangzhou of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, there was a desolate western border. At the top of a dilapidated ancient city gate, a man was sitting there with a wine pot in his hand. As he drank, he looked at the setting sun in the west. Beside him, there was a 3-meter-long sword that brushed against the stone wall. This man was Han Jianxing. At this moment, a woman who looked to be in her 20s descended from the sky. "Father, don't drink anymore." The person who came was none other than Han Jianxing's daughter, Han Lubai. Han Jianxing turned his head and looked at his daughter drowsily. His eyes revealed a trace of affection. "Since I have nothing to do, I'll drink to relax." Han Lubai didn't want to dwell on this matter. Instead, she asked, "Dad, did you destroy their sect again?" Han Jianxing shook his head. "Why would I destroy another sect for no reason?" Han Lubai curled her lips. "Come on. It's not like you haven't done it before." Han Jianxing shook his head again and did not argue. Han Lubai turned on her multifunctional watch and opened a few web pages. She handed them to Han Jianxing. "You're still denying it?" Han Jiansheng looked at the words on the web pages. Shocking! A sword freezing the 16 prefectures reappears in the pugilistic world. Sorry, Skygold Sect. Sorry, Skywood Sect. Sorry, Heavenly Water Sect. I, Han Jiansheng, have returned to the pugilistic world. First battle in the pugilistic world. I destroyed 3 sects in one battle. The words below were basically about Han Jiansheng's return to the pugilistic world and the destruction of 3 sections. Moreover, he made it sound like it was real. There were even photos of the scene. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. Several mountain peaks were dyed blood red. Destroyed mountain peaks and so on. There were even the corpses of the Skygold Sect's sect master and grand elder, who had been reduced to meat paste. If not for their clothes, it would be impossible to tell that they were the 2 grand desolate masters of the Skygold Sect. And there were also some live streamers who went to the scene to do a live broadcast. The blood mist that filled the sky, the corpses that were strewn all over the ground, and the huge collapsed mountain rocks were all telling the story of the massacre that had happened that day. Seeing this, Han Jiansheng shook his head. It's not me. Han Lubai curled her lips again. Still stubborn? Look at the article below. The analysis is reasonable and it's saying that it's you. Still not admitting it? Han Jiansheng laughed. Can the unscrupulous media nowadays be trusted? Han Lubai still didn't believe him, and asked back, if it's not you, who can it be? Hearing her question, a figure appeared in Han Lubai's mind. It should be him. Seeing this, Han Lubai asked, who? Han Jiansheng said, do you still remember when you threw a tantrum and went to the 13th hunting ground? Han Lubai nodded. Yes, what's wrong? Han Jiansheng said, at that time, there was a kid who provided me with clues. That's why I could find you so quickly. Han Lubai's heart skipped a beat. You mean that little brother? Han Jiansheng nodded. Yes. Han Lubai shook her head. This is impossible. At that time, he wasn't even a desolate master. It's only been half a year. How could he have grown to this level? Han Jiansheng nodded again. This time, I went to the ancient dragon battlefield and saw him. He killed the sect masters of the Skywood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect by himself, as well as more than 400 elite disciples of the Skygold Trisect. And with a strange saber, he killed more than 1,000 giant dragon evil spirits in the 4th district. Han Lubai's mouth opened wider and wider as she listened. Dad, are you joking with me? From a desolate master to a grand desolate master in half a year? Isn't this too ridiculous? Chapter 437. Han Jiansheng shook his head. He's only a rank 2 desolate hunter, but his combat power is no weaker than a rank 10 desolate hunter. Most importantly, he's a summoner and can summon rank 2 desolate beasts. It was that rank 2 desolate beast that killed those 2 desolate masters. So, if there's anyone who can wipe out the 3 sects in a single day, it's definitely him. Han Jiansheng seemed to recall something at this point. Although he was looking at the setting sun on the horizon, it was as if he could see through the setting sun and see the scene on the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragon. He slowly said, and he can transform into a dragon. Dragon. Han Lubai's eyes lit up. Giant dragons, that was a creature that only existed in legends. Since ancient times, countless people had been searching for the giant dragon, wave after wave. However, they were disappointed that they couldn't find a single living dragon after tens of thousands of years. It was obvious that dragons were extinct. However, people's worship of giant dragons had never died out. As long as one was from the flaming origin continent, they would yearn for dragons. She didn't expect this guy to be able to transform into a dragon. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years of history. Dad, is that for real? Are you sure you're not mistaken? Han Jiansheng shook his head. How could I be mistaken? The moment he transformed into a giant dragon, even I had the urge to worship him. He's definitely a real dragon. Han Lubai's eyes lit up. Dad, you said before that if I were to find a boyfriend in the future, I'd have to find someone stronger than you. Now, this little brother is almost worshipped by you. Can I ask him to be my boyfriend? She had a good impression of Emoshur, but because her father didn't agree, she could only suppress it in her heart for now. Now that her father mentioned him again, saying that he was strong enough to crush a rank 1 desolate master, she was naturally moved. But more importantly, it was because of curiosity. How could a person transform into a dragon? Did he have a dragon bloodline? A dragon! She wanted to find Emoshur because of her yearning for dragons and her curiosity about a person who could transform into a dragon. Han Jianxing abruptly turned around, his face stern. No! Han Lubai jumped in fright and couldn't help but ask, Dad, why? Han Jianxing shook his head. The dragon that he transforms into carries too much killing intent. In the future, he might even grow into a devil who killed people without batting an eyelid. So no. As an experienced and knowledgeable Grand Desolate Master, he did not know what a bloodthirsty demon dragon was. However, when Emoshur transformed into a giant dragon, he could feel the murderous aura that was released. When he destroyed 19 sects to avenge his wife, that was when his killing intent was at its strongest. But even then, his killing intent was not even 1/100th of this kid's. This kid's murderous aura could even condense into a substance to kill people. How could she let her daughter look for him? Hearing Han Jianxing's words, Han Lu Bai's heart couldn't help trembling. After a moment of silence, she said to the man under her roof, Dad, then can't you go find him and help him get rid of the murderous aura on him? After all, he helped me find your daughter. You can't just watch him become a peerless devil. Han Jianxing shook his head. My murderous aura from back then only gradually disappeared after a few decades. His current murderous aura probably won't disappear in this lifetime. If you follow him, you'll have to spend the rest of your life in killing and fleeing. What's more dangerous is that when he goes berserk, even his family and friends will be killed by him. Han Lubai's heart sank when she heard this. Is there really no other way? Han Jianxing said, I'm afraid so. At this moment, Emoshur rested for a few days after reaching level 10 Long Nianshur. When his dragon will had completely stabilized, he set off for the 10th hunting island again. Previously, in order to curry favor with the Skygold sect, the 10th hunting island had directly come to the 1st hunting island to capture him and send him to the Skygold sect. Now that the Skygold sect had been destroyed, he naturally couldn't let them go. Therefore, Emoshur kept teleporting to the 10th hunting island. In just half an hour, he arrived at the 10th hunting island. At this moment on the 10th hunting island, the island owner had already set up all the defenses around the island. Previously, when the female manager was killed by Emoshur on the spot, he already knew that something was wrong. After that, he contacted the Skygold sect, who said that they would deal with it immediately. However, 5 days had passed. Not only did the Skygold sect fail to get rid of that brat, but they also received news that the Skygold sect had been destroyed. When he heard this news, he was completely dumbfounded, although he didn't think it was that brat who did it. However, now that the Skygold sect had been destroyed, no one would deal with that brat. Therefore, if that brat wanted to take revenge on the 10th hunting island, they would have to bear all the consequences themselves. Fortunately, he had already hired a few desolate hunters to guard the 10th hunting island. However, now that the Skygold sect was gone, the 10th hunting island no longer had a backer. Therefore, a few dozen desolate hunters were far from enough. Therefore, he had to hire more desolate hunters. In the afternoon, those desolate hunters had already arrived. They were guarding the 10th hunting island at this moment. As a result, he felt a little more at ease. At the same time, Emoshur had already arrived above the 10th hunting island. With a thought, he plundered the memories of the few people on the island. After checking their memories, he found out that there were more than 100 desolate hunters on the island. This was a pleasant surprise for Emoshur. He flapped his wings. At this moment, the wings were condensed from energy and were not the wings of the demonic dragon. After all, the system had once told him not to casually reveal the body of the bloodthirsty demonic dragon. He looked down at the entire 10th hunting island and shouted, Island owner of the 10th hunting island, come out and accept your death. His booming voice spread to the bottom of the island. The seawater around the 10th hunting island was stirred up by his voice and spread out in all directions. The people on the 10th hunting island were all shocked. They all looked up at the angel. Upon hearing this, the expression of the island owner of the 10th hunting island changed. He hurriedly said to the hired desolate hunters through his multifunctional watch, "Kill him and each of you will be rewarded with 10,000 crystal sources. Those who kill him with their own hands will be rewarded with 100,000 crystal sources." With such a great reward, there would definitely be brave men. When the 100 or so desolate hunters heard such a great reward, they were all overjoyed. "Watch me! Let me do it! Today's kill is mine!" Chapter 438. He's mine. I'm definitely going to take this head. Let me do it. When these desolate hunters saw Emoshur in the air and heard Emoshur shout, they were not afraid at all. Instead, they were very excited. After all, as long as they killed this kid, everyone would be able to obtain origin crystals. Moreover, the person who killed him would be able to obtain 100,000 origin crystals. This was definitely a reward that far exceeded their expectations. Moreover, they did not know Emoshur and did not know how strong Emoshur was. In their opinion, he should be at most a rank 10 desolate hunter. It was impossible for him to be a grand desolate master. After all, in the entire 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, there were no more than 10 grand desolate masters. As long as he was a grand desolate master, it was impossible for them not to know him. As long as he was not a grand desolate master, it would be easy to deal with him. Among them, there were quite a few rank 10 desolate hunters. They would be able to take down this kid no matter what. Emoshur looked at the group of desolate hunters below, who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a satisfied smile. They were rushing to give him kill points. He could have more people like this. Soon, more than 100 desolate hunters rushed to Emoshur's location. However, halfway through their flight, bang! A body with 5 meridians mismatched suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It was as if a red firework had exploded in the air. The surrounding desolate hunters heard the sound and turned their heads to look. When they saw it, they were all stunned. What happened? But before they could wrap their heads around it, the explosions rang out one after another. Bang! 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 The surrounding desolate hunters exploded into a cloud of blood mist as if dozens of fireworks had exploded at the same time. The difference was that the fireworks were colorful, but the blood mist that these people had exploded into was only one color. Seeing such a strange scene, the expressions of the desolate hunters changed greatly. "Not good, he's a spirit psychic," someone exclaimed. To be able to use this method to explode the bodies of desolate hunters below rank 5, he must be a spirit psychic. Just as they were talking, Emoshur's draconic will moved. The blood mist that had exploded in the air no longer dispersed. Instead, it spiraled around his body. Soon, a blood tornado formed around his body. In the next moment, he flew towards the 2 level 10 desolate hunters. His speed was much faster than that of the 2 grade 10 desolate hunters. Seeing that they could not escape, the 2 level 10 desolate hunters hurriedly condensed their genetic weapons and tried to convert them into energy weapons. However, it was already too late. Emoshur's blood tornado had already arrived in front of them. In an instant, the 2 of them were swallowed. Within the bloody tornado, every drop of blood was like a sharp blade as it spun at high speed. Chi 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 chi. The bodies of the 2 men were instantly torn apart. Their corpses continued to be torn apart. In the end, they turned into fresh blood droplets that merged into the blood tornado. When the others saw this, they were all horrified. Even if it was a stone, it would still make a sound when thrown into the water. These 2 were level 10 desolate hunters, but they didn't leave anything behind after entering the blood tornado. This was truly too terrifying. At this point, they had already forgotten about the reward they had been promised, and had even forgotten the reason why they had been hired to come here. There was only one thought in their minds: run. Many of them were even more regretful. If they had known this would happen, they would never have come to this place. No matter how much money they were offered, they would not have done it. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. It was already too late for them to regret. The speed of the blood tornado was far beyond their imagination. In just a minute, all of them had been sucked in. After everyone was sucked in, they silently disappeared into the blood tornado. Of course, some of them took out their wormhole teleportation devices. However, as soon as they took it out, boom boom. Their wormhole teleportation devices seemed to have been subjected to some kind of terrifying pressure and exploded. Therefore, they could only face despair. Soon, these 100+ desolate hunters were all slaughtered by Mosher. At this point, in his mind, the kill points had increased by more than 100. Kill points 5991000 on the island below. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Whether it was the original employees of the 10th Hunting Island or the people who had come to the island for training, they were all terrified. They were all afraid that this terrifying murderous demon could kill them all with just a thought. Judging from the current situation, he really had the ability to do so. After all, those who came to the 10th Hunting Island for training were basically only level 10 desolate hunters. The 10th Hunting Island's owner was already in despair at this point. He should not have provoked this kid in the first place. However, who knew that this kid was actually so strong? Mosher looked down and said in a cold voice, "You're a benefactor, 10th Hunting Island's owner. Die." Before his voice died away, his dragon consciousness was about to spread out and bombard the 10th Hunting Island's owner. However, at this moment, a voice was heard. "Stop!" Before the voice died away, a figure had already flown up. Everyone turned to look at that person. It was a middle-aged man. He was dressed in black. There were faint dark golden patterns on his clothes. The patterns were shaped like fine scales. On the left side of his chest, there was a small dragon pattern embroidered on it. Mosher would not have paid any attention to his stop. Usually, when he encountered such a situation, he would kill the target first. However, this person's attire at this moment attracted his attention. He quietly floated in the air and looked at that person. That person also looked at Mosher and sized up Mosher. That person introduced himself. "I am Long Chongyuan of the dragon race." Mosher activated the demon dragon's eye and sized this person up again. Race: human. Level: Level 8 desolate hunter. Mosher knew that the so-called dragon race on this flaming land was actually not the real dragon race. Their ancestors had received favors from the dragon race and swore to be the dragon race's protectors for generations. As time passed, tens of thousands of years had passed. The descendants of these protectors became more and more arrogant. They did not know how they spread the rumors, but later on, they believed that they had the dragon race's bloodline in them, but it had not been awakened. Once it was awakened, they would be invincible in the entire flaming land. Therefore, they called themselves the dragon race. Mosher felt that this was a bit ridiculous. Moreover, such a ridiculous thing, who else could it be? This was the most ridiculous thing. That Long Chongyuan said to Mosher, "Little brother, although I don't know what happened between you and the 10th Hunting Island's owner, as an experienced person, I advise you to be lenient where possible. Take a step back and you'll be at peace. Don't kill too many people." Mosher did not like this person to begin with. Hearing his words, he was even more annoyed. He asked coldly, "You know what I've been through, and you're telling me to take a step back?" Chapter 439. When he heard Long Chongyuan of the Dragon Clan advising him, Mosher was furious. "You know what I've been through, and you're advising me to take a step back? Has your wife been killed? Has your son been killed? Has your family been destroyed? Has your family of more than 300 people been killed?" Long Chongyuan was slightly taken aback. He asked, "Have you been through all of this?" Mosher shook his head. "No." Long Chongyuan. Mosher glanced at the 10th Hunting Island and continued, "I just want to tell you that you shouldn't advise others to be kind if you haven't experienced their pain. You know what they've been through and you're advising them to be magnanimous?" Long Chongyuan felt like he had been tricked by this kid. He had advised him not to kill so many people out of goodwill, but he had tricked him. He, a member of the dragon race, had been tricked by a mere human. How preposterous. Thinking of this, he said coldly, "Kid, I was advising you out of goodwill, but you didn't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, I'll stop you from killing him today." Before he finished speaking, Long Wei suddenly spread out from his body and attacked Emoshur. Emoshur felt the Long Wei and couldn't help but be a little surprised. This so-called dragon race could really release Long Wei. He finally understood why so many people on the Flaming Dawn continent believed the false dragon's lies and deceit. However, this Long Wei was not even worth mentioning in front of Emoshur. Moreover, he was a giant dragon and was completely immune to Long Wei. Therefore, he sneered and warned, "Those who stop me will die. Are you sure you want to stop me?" When Long Chongyuan saw that Emoshur's expression didn't change at all under the dragon's might, he was also slightly surprised. Ever since he learned how to use dragon's might, most people's expressions would change drastically and they would panic in front of his dragon's might. Only a few people were not afraid of his Long Wei. However, people like that were far stronger than him. For example, a Grand Desolate Master. Could it be that this kid was a Grand Desolate Master? Thinking of this, he started to panic a little. However, the Dragon Clan had always been arrogant and refused to admit defeat. He pretended to be calm and snorted coldly. "If you kill me, you will be going against the entire Dragon Clan. You have to think carefully." Poof! Before he could finish his sentence, a tentacle had already pierced his heart. At the same time, Emoshur's indifferent voice sounded, "Do I need to think about killing you?" Long Chongyuan's words came to an abrupt end. He looked down at his chest. His chest had already been pierced by a blood-red tentacle. Fresh blood slowly dripped from the wound along the dragon-patterned robe. His gaze followed the blood-red tentacle that pierced his chest. It stretched all the way to the end of the tentacle. It was Emoshur. This brat actually dared to make a move against him. A human actually dared to attack the noble Dragon Clan? One had to know that the Dragon Clan had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. In these tens of thousands of years, the dragon race had produced many Grand Desolate Master experts. Moreover, these Grand Desolate Master experts of the Dragon Clan were several times stronger than the human Grand Desolate Master experts. These Grand Desolate Master experts had made quite a name for themselves in these tens of thousands of years. Therefore, the Dragon Clan's foundation was something that the other powers on the continent could not compare to. Even now, no one knew how many Grand Desolate Master experts of the Dragon Clan were still alive. Maybe 20, 30, or 100. In short, the Dragon Clan was undoubtedly the #1 power on the continent. Even if they did not expand their power and had always guarded their small place. However, no power dared to look down on the Dragon Clan. Therefore, no matter who it was, after seeing the Dragon Clan, they could only be careful, afraid that they would anger the Dragon Clan. Even those Grand Desolate Masters were no exception. And now, a mere desolate hunter actually wanted to kill him. Blood had already flowed out of his mouth. His gaze was fixed on Emoshur. Pausing after each word, "The Dragon Clan will not let you off." Poof! Before he finished speaking, the blood-red tentacle had already grown hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles in his body, and scattered from his body. His entire body seemed to have turned into a sea urchin with blood-red thorns all over his body. In the next moment, Emoshur's tentacles retracted back into his body. "The Dragon Clan will not let me off? I'm afraid you don't know what a dragon-slaying saber is." On the 10th hunting island, everyone looked at Emoshur. Each and every one of them was shocked. This kid actually dared to kill the Dragon Clan. Did he eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. At the same time, they were all afraid of Emoshur. This kid did not care about his life and even dared to kill the Dragon Clan. Who else would he not dare to kill? When the 10th hunting island owner saw that Emoshur even dared to kill the Dragon Clan, his heart was filled with despair. This kid was not even afraid of the Dragon Clan's prestige. He was just a small island owner on the 10th hunting island. In front of this kid, he could forget about living. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, boom! The body of the island owner of the 10th hunting island exploded. Along with him, the other tens of thousands of desolate hunters on the 10th hunting island also exploded. Only those who came to the 10th hunting island for training did not explode. Although Mo sure wanted to collect kill points, he would not kill the innocent for no reason. Earlier, the Dragon Clan wanted to stop him, so he killed him. The others did not stop him, so he naturally would not kill them. After wiping out everyone on the 10th hunting island, Mo Sure's kill points had just broken through 700. It seemed like there was still a long way to go to collect kill points. Previously, Mo Sure was thinking of going to the 20th hunting island after wiping out the 10th hunting island. However, the appearance of the Dragon Clan had piqued his interest. So, he changed his mind and decided to pay a visit to the Dragon Clan first. The Dragon Clan was located in the Dragon Province, far away from the 16 provinces of Serene Cloud. It was the province with the most abundant resources among the 58 provinces of the entire Flamestone continent. Over 10,000 years ago, this place was not called the Dragon Province. However, the Dragon Clan discovered that this place was rich in resources, so they moved the entire Dragon Clan here. During these 10,000 years, the other forces were afraid of the Dragon Clan's strength, so they all moved away. In the end, the only major force left in this province was the Dragon Clan. So, this place was renamed the Dragon Province. Because of the existence of the Dragon Clan, the Dragon Province became the largest province on the entire Flamestone continent. When the people of the Dragon Province went to other provinces, they would feel that they were superior. Although Mo Sure had once obtained a teleportation device of the Dragon Clan, he did not use it. Only the Dragon Clan would have the teleportation device of the Dragon Clan. If he teleported there rashly, he would not be able to explain it at all. So, before he figured out the situation over there, he did not plan to make too much of it. He teleported all the way to the Dragon Province. With Mo Sure's speed of 1,000 kilometers per second, it took him 12 hours to teleport there. Chapter 440. Mo Sure teleported all the way to the Dragon Province. Took him 12 hours to reach there. According to his personality in the past, he would not go directly to the Dragon Clan. Before going to the Dragon Clan, he had to stay in the Dragon Province for a while and learn about the Dragon Clan through various aspects. But now, after Mo Sure transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his personality had changed. The risk factor in his personality had increased by a lot, and he had already learned about the Dragon Clan through Long Chongyuan's memories. Plus, he had a powerful mutated desolate beast like the Sea Dragon clone as his trump card, so he obviously had nothing to worry about. Even if there was a powerful existence in the Dragon Clan that surpassed a third-level Grand Desolate Master, Mo Sure could still escape through teleportation. Taking a step back, even if the other party could also teleport, his speed would be faster than his own. Mo Sure could still hide in his miniature world. He did not believe that the other party could chase him into his miniature world. A few minutes later, Mo Sure had already teleported to the territory of the Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan occupied a valley. On the north and south sides of the valley were towering mountains. The mountains were very steep, almost straight up and down. There were waterfalls and springs on the mountains. A large river ran from east to west. On the walls of the mountains on both sides, there were many naturally formed caves and platforms. This was the base camp of the Dragon Clan. Mo Sure scanned over with his dragon's sense. He was also a little surprised. It seemed like there were not many people in the valley, but the valley was more than 300 kilometers long. In such a long valley, there were more than 200,000 people hidden. Every single one of them was dressed in black with dark golden dragon scales embroidered on their clothes. When Mo Sure used the demon dragon's eye to observe the levels of these people, he discovered that there were close to 10,000 desolate hunters among them. There were also over 100 grand desolate masters. Even Mo Sure could not help but gasp. No wonder they dared to call themselves the strongest faction on the Flaming Dawn continent. This was definitely not a joke. In the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, the strongest sect, the Celestial Gold sect, only had over 300 desolate hunters and 2 grand desolate masters. But there were close to 10,000 desolate hunters and over 100 grand desolate masters here. The difference in strength between them was not small at all. According to his investigation, the strongest existences in the dragon race were 12 level 3 grand desolate masters. As for whether or not, there were even more powerful existences hiding in a place that even Mo Shi's devil dragons I couldn't detect. Mo Shi didn't know. However, he was not afraid. In his mind, he said, "System, sign in." The system's voice quickly sounded, "Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Dragon Valley of the Dragon Province. Sign in reward, miniature world upgrade Mo Shi." It leveled up just like that? He originally thought that many conditions would need to be met in order to upgrade his miniature world. For example, he had to reach the level of a Grand Desolate Master. Another example would be to collect enough dragon wills. He didn't think that the Dragon Valley would be upgraded so soon after he arrived. He continued to check in his mind. After the miniature world has been upgraded, its area has reached 10 square kilometers. It can also add any terrain or scenery according to the host's wishes. Mo Shi pondered for a moment upon hearing this. He said, "I think the scenery of this Dragon Valley is not bad. Can you shrink it according to the appearance of the Dragon Valley and copy it for me?" The system's voice sounded, "No problem." In the next moment, when Mo Shi's consciousness entered the miniature world, he found that the area of the miniature world was rapidly expanding. In just a few seconds, it had expanded to 100 square kilometers. At the border of the miniature world, there was chaos. In the east of the miniature world, the Dragon Valley appeared according to his wishes. This Dragon Valley looked almost exactly the same as the real Dragon Valley. 2 towering mountains with a large river in the middle. On the mountain walls on both sides, waterfalls and springs flowed. In the mountains, yellow leaves were constantly falling. There were many platforms in the mountains. There were houses built on the platforms. Mo Shi couldn't help but be delighted. This way, the scenery of the miniature world would be much richer. In the future, when he brought them in, they could play here for a few days. Of course, the current miniature world was still too small. When he went to more places in the future, he might be able to copy more places into the miniature world. This place would become bigger and bigger, and the scenery would become richer and richer. Of course, when the miniature world became bigger, Mo Shi would be able to store more things in this city. If he wanted to, this 100 square kilometer area could be used to store things. However, if he did that, it would cause some damage to this place. His consciousness returned to reality from the miniature world. Mo Shi looked at the Dragon Valley, secretly looking forward to it. He already had a feeling that this trip to the Dragon Valley would be very rewarding. Mo Shi condensed a pair of wings with his energy and slowly flew towards the Dragon Valley above the river. After flying for less than a kilometer, 2 people also condensed a pair of wings with their energy and flew up. Mo Shi's wings were 5 meters wide and blood red. But these 2 people's wings were very gaudy. Both of them were golden yellow, which symbolized nobility. Also, there were some dragon patterns on their wings. These 2 people were both desolate hunters. "Stop!" one of them shouted. "Who are you? What do you want?" the other person asked. With a smile, Mo Shi said, "Oh, I heard that the Dragon Valley is here. I've always yearned for dragons, and I'm a fan of the dragon race. Therefore, I traveled thousands of miles from the distant Yuzhou to see the glory of the dragon race." The 2 people looked at each other. "Yuzhou?" "The Yuzhou in the east, which is the most desolate place." Mo Shi nodded. "That's right." The 2 people couldn't help but laugh. Yuzhou is probably tens of millions of kilometers away from here. Even if you use the public teleportation devices between the major provinces, it will take a few months. Also, the cost of using the public teleportation devices is quite high. Mo Shi smiled and shook his head. "That's true. But in order to see the Dragon Valley with my own eyes, I don't have to worry about it. None of this is a problem." The 2 men said, "Not just anyone can enter the Dragon Valley. Even if you came here with sincerity, we can't let you in so easily. Have you heard of the saying, Those who trespass into the Dragon Valley will be killed without mercy? Mo sure nodded. Of course I've heard of it, but I didn't come empty-handed. I can offer some crystal source ores to the dragon race. The two people snorted coldly. Crystal source ores? How much can you give? The other person said, I don't want to discourage you, but the dragon race has plenty of crystal source ores. The two of us can each receive at least 300 crystal source ores every month. The crystal source ores you give us are not even enough to fill the gaps between our teeth. Mo sure pretended to be thinking. After a while he said, I see. Then I'll give you 3,000 crystal source ores each, and you'll let me in. How about it? Chapter 441. 3,000. The two of them looked at each other, and a gulping sound came from their throats. The cultivation method of the dragon clan was different from that of ordinary people. Their ancestors had passed down a lot of giant dragon blood. They relied on absorbing the giant dragon blood to level up. However, even though the giant dragon blood had been diluted many times, it was still too violent for ordinary humans. Therefore, they needed to use crystal source stones to guide the energy in the dragon blood. Therefore, they would consume a lot of crystal source stones when they cultivated. The more crystal source stones they had, the more dragon blood they could absorb and the faster they could level up. The core disciples of the dragon clan could receive as many as thousands of crystal source stones every month. These two disciples who were like gatekeepers could only receive 100 crystal source stones every month. However, they said that they would receive 300 crystal source stones every month to save face. At this moment, they heard that Mo sure was going to give them 3,000 crystal source stones each. This was equivalent to several years of their income. The two of them were naturally excited. You have so many crystal source stones? One of them asked. Mo sure nodded. Of course. As he spoke, he moved his mind. Two cloth bags appeared in front of him. In each cloth bag, there were 3,000 crystal source stones. The two of them were not surprised when they saw Mo sure produce cloth bags out of thin air. In the Dragon Clan, this kind of wormhole teleportation technology had long been very mature. Things like telekinesis were very common. The two of them opened the cloth bags and saw that the cloth bags were full of crystal source stones. The two of them confirmed that the 2 bags of crystal source stones were real. Although they did not count, they estimated that there were definitely more than 2,000 crystal source stones inside. Their hearts began to thump violently. With so many origin crystals, it would be enough for both of them to level up within a month. After a moment, the two of them suppressed the excitement in their hearts. One of them said, Since you are so sincere about visiting the Dragon Valley, it would be unreasonable of us to not let you in. However, after you enter, you must keep a low profile. Don't expose your identity as an outsider. Otherwise, anyone who trespasses into the Dragon Clan will be killed without mercy. Understand? Mo sure nodded. Yes. The other person said in a threatening tone, We'll take a proper inventory later. If there's even a single one of your source crystals missing, we'll throw you out. Mo sure shook his head. Of course not. One of them asked Mo sure. Name? Mo sure said, Mo sure? Mo, as in emotionless killer. Sure, as in full release. Another person took out a device and keyed in Mo sure's name. Then he said to Mo sure, Remember, you will be called Long Sure from now on. Hold out your right hand. Mo sure was puzzled. Why? One of them said, I told you to stretch out your hand, so stretch it out. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Mo sure stretched out his right hand. One of them took out something that looked like an electronic thermometer and placed it on Mo sure's wrist. Mo sure felt a sharp pain on his wrist, and then a dragon tattoo the size of a fingernail appeared. The person scanned the tattoo with the device, and Mo sure's identity information appeared. Frowny face name. Long Sure. Race? Dragon? Level 3 Desolate Hunter. One of them said to Mo sure, In the future, if anyone asks, just say that you're a dragon. Don't waste any more time. We'll give you 3 days to visit. Once you're done, Leave immediately and don't cause any trouble. Otherwise, we'll find you and throw you out, understand? Emosher nodded again. Yes. The two people waved their hands and let Emosher enter. Emosher said to the two of them, "Thank you." He hurriedly entered the dragon clan. The two men watched Emosher's back disappear behind a waterfall. One of them asked, "What's the matter?" One of them asked, "There won't be any problems, right?" The other person laughed and said, "Causing trouble in our dragon clan? You're courting death. Even if there's really something wrong with him, how much trouble can a mere level 3 desolate hunter cause? Besides, when I put the dragon mark on him just now, I also implanted a tracker. With this tracker, we'll know where he is at any time. As long as we check the surveillance footage, we'll know what he's doing." "You're smart." "What are you talking about? Is this called smart? This is called cunning." "Yes, you're cunning. Cut the crap. Let's go back and refine these crystal source stones and try to break through as soon as possible." At the same time, Emosher had turned around from the waterfall and there was a cave. This cave didn't extend into the belly of the mountain. Instead, it passed through a naturally formed wall. On the other side was a platform. The platform was very large, about the size of hundreds of football fields. On this platform, there were hundreds of houses. There were thousands of people living here. Emosher couldn't help but feel a little envious. Living in such a valley, there was a huge waterfall next to it. Listening to the sound of the waterfall every night should make one sleep soundly. Emosher plundered the memories of a few people and flipped through them for a moment. From these people's memories, he knew that the Dragon Valley would hold a competition in more than 10 days. There was only one prize for the champion, the incomplete dragon vein. Emosher couldn't help but feel happy. It seemed that he had come at the right time. In the eyes of these dragons, although the incomplete dragon vein was not complete, with the dragon vein by their side, cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. Of course, such a good thing couldn't be used by people with ordinary talent. Instead, it was reserved for those prodigies. There were many prodigies in the dragon tribe. There were more than 200,000 people in the dragon tribe, and more than 200 of them could be called prodigies. Therefore, the dragon tribe decided to hold a competition for these prodigies to participate in. In the end, whoever won the championship would get the incomplete dragon vein. Of course, Emosher couldn't participate in the competition. That would take time and effort. Moreover, if he participated in the competition, he would attract too much attention and easily expose his true identity. Therefore, his idea was very simple. First, he would think of a way to find out where the dragon vein was, then use his teleportation skill to steal it. Wasn't it simple? From these people's memories, Emosher knew that the dragon vein was definitely with the dragon tribe leader. It would be difficult to steal it out for the time being. He could only wait for the dragon tribe prodigies to decide the champion. After obtaining the dragon vein, Emosher would steal the dragon vein from the so-called champion. In the next few days, Emosher kept a low profile. Every day, other than touring the dragon tribe, he did nothing else. There were 200,000 people in the dragon tribe, and it was normal for people not to know each other. Therefore, he didn't attract the attention of outsiders. The two guards from before were a little worried at first, afraid that Emosher would cause trouble here. But for 5 days in a row, the two guards saw that Emosher was just playing and didn't have any intention of causing trouble. Only then did they feel relieved and continue to refine those crystal source stones. Chapter 442. Emosher went on a scenic tour in the Dragon Clan for a full 10 days. In these 10 days, other than the Dragon Clan's forbidden area, he went to all the other places. However, what he didn't know was that there were 2 spiritual psyche masters hiding in the shadows of the Dragon Clan. They had already seen his every move. There were a total of 10 spiritual psychics in the Dragon Tribe. These 2 were the strongest among them. Their spiritual senses had all reached level 8. 2 level 8 spiritual psychics. In the outside world, it was rare to even see a level 1 spiritual psychic. But the Dragon Tribe had 2 level 8 spiritual psychics. This showed how powerful the Dragon Tribe was. Of course, these two level 8 spiritual psychics were the hidden elites of the dragon tribe. Even in the dragon tribe, there were very few people who knew of their existence. The two of them used their spiritual senses to explore the entire Dragon Valley every day, guarding the safety of the Dragon Valley. So when Mo Shur appeared at the entrance of the Dragon Valley, they already knew that Mo Shur had disguised himself as a member of the dragon tribe and sneaked into the Dragon Valley. The reason why they did not make a move was because they wanted to know what Mo Shur was up to. At this time, it was the last night before the Dragon Tribe's prodigy battle. The entire Dragon Valley was in a jubilant mood. The battle between 100 prodigies of the Dragon Tribe was definitely a rare event for the Dragon Tribe. The two level 8 spiritual psychics of the Dragon Tribe were using their spiritual senses to cover a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Dragon Shursan, the battle will start tomorrow. To ensure the safety of the Dragon Valley, should we get rid of this kid? The spiritual psychic called Dragon Shursan said, "No need. This kid only has so little strength. Our Dragon Valley can just send a 5th-level Desolate Hunter to kill him." "You're right, but the reward this time is the Dragon Vein. It's a big deal. We can't afford to make any mistakes." Dragon Shursan shook her head. It's called the Dragon Vein, but it's actually an incomplete one. Other than helping with cultivation, it has no other use. "You're right, but we still have to be careful." Dragon Shursan said, "Don't worry, don't we have dragon guards? There are other spiritual psychics. If they can't even handle such a small matter, then they don't deserve to be dragon guards and dragon spiritualists." The other spiritual psyche master listened and thought for a moment before finally nodding. "You're right. It seems that I was overthinking things. That morning, the largest waterfall in the Dragon Valley was over 100 meters wide. The 100-meter-wide waterfall was surrounded by water vapor. The sun was just shining on the waterfall. The mist around the waterfall formed an arched rainbow under the sunlight. Beside the waterfall was the largest circular plaza in the Dragon Valley. The radius of the circular plaza was about 2 kilometers. Around the circular plaza stood 10 giant dragon statues. Each of the dragon statues was 100 meters long. This square was called Giant Dragon Square. Usually, it was the place where the Dragon Clan's bullets practiced their martial arts. And today, this huge square had become a specialized arena. Around the arena, there were floating spectator stands. These spectator stands were usually hidden underground and did not take up much space. When there was a fight, the spectator stands would be raised using the geomagnetic reaction. The audience sat on the floating stands and had a great view. However, it did not affect the passage of the people on the ground. The floating stands here surrounded the entire square. They could accommodate more than 100,000 spectators. At this time, the stands were already filled with people. Mo Shur was also sitting on the stands with an excited look on his face. After all, the people around him were very excited. If he appeared to be very calm, it would easily arouse the suspicion of others. Not long after, under the auspices of an elder of the Dragon Clan, 2 prodigies took the lead to appear. These 2 prodigies were both below the age of 30, and their strength was that of a level 5 Desolate Hunter. They had become level 5 Desolate Hunters before the age of 30. Such talent was indeed hard to come by. Then, a protective light shield rose around the spectator stands. The entire protective light shield was like a huge bowl that was upside down in the entire square. This light shield was naturally to prevent the aftershocks of their battle from spreading out and injuring others or destroying the surrounding buildings. The people of the Dragon Clan never talked much nonsense. The presiding elder only said a few words, and the battle had already begun. The battle between the two was really exciting. Because they were of the same level, their battle experience was similar, so the two could be said to be evenly matched. Mo Shur observed the battle between the two. He could clearly see that their combat prowess was much higher than that of an ordinary 5th-rank Desolate Hunter. With their strength, if they went to the outside world, it would not be a problem for them to defeat other level 5 Desolate Hunters. It seemed that although the Dragon Clan was arrogant, they really did have the ability. This made Mo Shur more cautious. The 2 strongest of the Dragon Clan were level 3 Desolate Masters. However, their battle strength was different from that of a level 3 Desolate Master in the outside world. Of course, the strength of the Sea Dragon clone was also different from that of a level 3 Desolate Master in the outside world. It was more than 10 times stronger. With the strength of the Sea Dragon clone, it should not have any difficulty in challenging a level 4 Desolate Master. At this time, the battle below had entered a white-hot stage. The two had each used their final trump cards. Bursts of flames and continuous roars. Finally, after another 2 minutes, the outcome was decided. However, the winner could be said to have won by a miserable margin. In his current state, his condition would be greatly reduced when he participated in the second round of the competition tomorrow. In the entire day, Wuxia and company watched 100 battles. The surrounding spectators were very excited. I haven't seen such a battle in a long time. Yes, it's definitely the most exciting battle I've seen in recent years. That's right. Whoever becomes the champion will be able to obtain the Dragon Vein. That's a Dragon Vein. With the Dragon Vein, cultivation will be twice the result with half the effort. Maybe 1 year is enough for us to cultivate for 10 years. You're not exaggerating enough. 10 years for us to cultivate for 10 years, 1 month is enough for him. These people were watching the fun, but Wuxia had a deeper understanding of the Dragon Clan's battle strength through this day's battle. With his current strength, if he really became enemies with the Dragon Clan, he would not be able to destroy them. However, it would not be difficult for him to escape from here. On the second day, there were only 100 geniuses left. They continued to fight. In the end, the top 50 were decided. Among these 50 geniuses, there were 3 who were the strongest. One was called Long Shuang, one was Long Feng, and one was Long Yun. These 3 were all under the age of 30 and had already become level 10 Desolate Masters. They were only 1 step away from becoming Grand Desolate Masters. It was impossible to see a level 10 Desolate Master under the age of 30 in other places in the Flaming Origin continent. It was clear that the Dragon Clan was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 443. The 3 strongest prodigies of the Dragon Clan, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun. They had all become level 10 Desolate Hunters. The 3 of them had won easily in the competition. Long Shuang had Ice Attribute Energy. Long Feng had Wind Attribute Energy. Long Yun could cause changes in the weather. These 3 were geniuses that might not appear in 100 years in the Dragon Clan. But now they had all appeared at the same time. This made the elders of the Dragon Clan overjoyed. With the 3 of them, the Dragon Clan would shake the entire Flaming Continent. In the final battle of the top 3, Long Shuang defeated Feng Yun in one fell swoop due to the uniqueness of the Ice Attribute and won the championship. In the end, the Patriarch, Lord Long, personally awarded the prize. Lord Long had a long black beard that was 2 feet long. Just by sitting there, his entire body was exuding a domineering aura. At this moment, he was sitting on the high platform on the east side of the square. The champion, Long Shuang, walked up the high platform step by step under the gazes of more than 100,000 people. Arriving in front of Long Shuang, he respectfully knelt on the ground and bowed. He said loudly, "Long Shuang greets the Patriarch." The Patriarch of the Dragon Clan, Lord Long, smiled and nodded slightly. But even when he smiled, he was still domineering, causing Long Shuang to not even dare to raise his head. Lord Long said to the Grand Elder beside him, "Grand Elder, give it to me." The Grand Elder beside him hurriedly replied respectfully, "Yes." As he spoke, he took out a dragon vein that was more than a foot long from a box that looked like a safe. The moment Wuxia saw the dragon vein, he secretly activated the demonic dragon's eye to appraise the authenticity of the dragon vein. After the blood dragon's eye was upgraded to the demonic dragon's eye, it could appraise the authenticity of items. Soon, the attributes of this item appeared in Wuxia's mind. Frowny face item, dragon vein, attribute, incomplete dragon vein. After being repaired, it can be fused into the body and one can have a true dragon body. Wuxia nodded secretly. It was indeed a real dragon vein. However, The 4 words, true dragon body, made him slightly puzzled. He asked in his heart, "Am I not already a real dragon? What is a true dragon body?" The system's voice replied, frowny face, "Not all dragons possess the true dragon body. The colossal dragon realm was divided into colossal dragon, evolved colossal dragon, super-evolved colossal dragon, ancient colossal dragon, primordial ancestral dragon, and dragon god. Ordinary dragons, no matter how talented they were, could only evolve into super-evolved dragons at most, and could not advance any further. Only by fusing with the dragon bloodline can one continue to evolve." Hearing this, Emoshur was secretly delighted. Now that there was a chance to mend the dragon veins, he could save himself the trouble in the future. The system continued. Moreover, if the dragon bloodline in the body mutates, different potentials can be activated and different abilities can be obtained. The fire dragon's dragon vein mutated and might give birth to the thunder dragon's lightning power. The ice dragon's dragon vein mutated and might give birth to the wind dragon's ability. When Emoshur heard the system's words, he was secretly looking forward to it. Strictly speaking, his current attribute was only the fire attribute. As for the ice dragon's breath, it was converted from the fire attribute energy in his body. If his dragon vein mutated in the future and gave birth to another attribute, it would be of great help to his combat power. If that was the case, he was determined to obtain this incomplete dragon vein. Of course, there were dozens of grand desolate masters around him. Their great elder and clan leader had even reached level 3 grand desolate master. Even if he had the Azure Dragon clone, he might not be able to gain any benefits. Therefore, he had to wait a little longer. When the sun set in the west, the martial arts competition finally came to an end. Everyone felt that it had not been enough. This year's martial arts battle assembly was the most exciting martial arts battle assembly in the last 100 years. Especially the battle between Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun. It was truly exciting. A martial arts competition like this would probably not happen again in 1,000 years. Therefore, that night, when night fell, the Dragon Valley was brightly lit. People were holding a ball to celebrate the success of this martial arts competition. Emoshur still did not make a move that night. This was because he had tried to plunder the memories of the Dragon Clan's clan leader. He did not expect to succeed on his first try. Through the memories of the Dragon Clan's clan leader, he knew that he had been discovered. Now, the 2 level 8 spirit reader masters of the Dragon Clan and their clan leader knew of the existence of an outsider like him. The clan leader had already given the order for the other spirit reader masters, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun, to keep an eye on him. The moment he made any movements, they would immediately take him down. Furthermore, this was treated as a test for the 3 geniuses, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun. If they could find a way to take him down and easily find out his goal, then the 3 of them would pass. Of course, torture didn't count. Emoshur forced a smile inwardly. He had actually been used as a target for their assessment. However, at the same time, this also reminded Emoshur of when he was on Earth. When he was on Earth, he was treated as prey. In the end, he, the prey, killed the hunter and even came to the hunter's world. In the hunter's world, he continued to ride the wind and waves. He had already done such a thing once. To him, it was a walk in the park. That night, Emoshur did not make a move. Through plundering the memories of the 3 of them, he knew that these fellows had some doubts. They had originally thought that their target was the dragon vein, so they had actually set up a trap that night and waited for him to fall into it. In the end, he did not make a move. In the next few days, they would still set up a trap and wait for Emoshur every night. After all, in their opinion, a stranger who appeared in the Dragon Valley at this point in time must be here for the dragon vein. They just didn't know who it was that dared to provoke the Dragon Clan. Therefore, they had to set up a trap and slowly investigate. And on this day, Emoshur knew from these fellows' memories that they would set up a trap every night and wait for him to fall into it. Emoshur had an idea. Since you guys have set up a trap for me, I might as well beat you at your own game. Thinking of this, Emoshur condensed a doppelganger in the afternoon of the same day. He ordered his clone to steal the dragon vein that night, while his main body had already activated the concealment and disguise skill. He turned into a rock and hid beside the waterfall, secretly observing. Around 3 o'clock that night, the clone used the disguise skill to sneak to Long Shuang's residence. At this time, in the house, after Long Shuang obtained the dragon vein, she had cultivated for a few days and was indeed tired. She was sleeping soundly. Emosher's clone sneaked into the house. Soon, he found the dragon vein locked in the safe at Long Shuang's bedside. Using a small decoding device, Emosher's doppelganger easily opened the safe. He reached out to take the dragon vein. However, at this moment, Kacha, a handcuff-like thing, was placed on the right hand of Emosher's clone. With a click, it closed. Chapter 444. Emosher's doppelganger had just put his hand into the safe when he heard a click sound. Something that looked like a handcuff suddenly popped out. With a crack, it closed around Emosher's clone's wrist. Seeing this, Emosher's clone hurriedly tried to break free. However, more than 10 tiny needles suddenly popped out from the inner circle of that thing and pierced into the clone's wrist. He injected something into Emosher's clone's wrist. Emosher's clone immediately felt as if he had lost all his strength. Even if he wanted to use his energy to break free from the handcuffs, it was useless. He was simply unable to activate the energy in his body. At this moment, the lights in the room suddenly lit up. Long Shuang had already sat up. With a smile on his face, he looked at Emosher's clone. The door opened, and Long Feng and Long Yun walked in with smiles on their faces. Long Shuang laughed out loud. "Junior brother Feng, your move is indeed effective. You're still the smart one." Long Feng shook his head and continued to laugh. "Senior brother Shuang, he is too stupid. Do you really think that our dragon clan is a free market that you can enter and leave as you please?" Long Yun said, "Since we've caught him, then it's time for our hallucinogens to come in handy." As he spoke, he pressed down on Emosher's clone's shoulder, and a wave of energy was injected into Emosher's clone's body. The energy in Emosher's clone's body was immediately completely suppressed. Long Feng took out a syringe, grabbed Emosher's clone's arm, and injected it. As long as this hallucinogen was injected into the target's body, it would cause the target's brain to produce illusions. In this illusion, one would speak the truth. After 5 minutes, Long Shuang said, "It's about time." Then he asked, "Who exactly are you?" Emosher's clone closed his eyes, immersed in the illusion. With an intoxicated look, he said with a silly smile, "My name is Emosher." Long Shuang asked again, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Yuzhou." Long Feng curled his lips. "That barren land? Who sent you? What is your purpose?" Emosher's clone replied, "No one. No one sent me. I admire the dragon race a lot, so I traveled thousands of miles to visit the dragon race. This is my goal." Shuang, Feng, and Yun looked at each other. Long Yun asked again, "Tell me honestly, what is your purpose in coming to our dragon clan?" Emosher's doppelganger was still in a daze as he replied, "I've always liked giant dragons since I was young, and I've always admired the dragon race. That's why I've come here on a pilgrimage." Long Yun frowned and cursed, F***CK. Long Feng also shook his head slightly. Why isn't it working? Did he really come all the way from Yuzhou province just for the so-called pilgrimage? Long Yun asked, "What do we do now?" Long Shuang pondered for a moment, then said, "This medicine was personally concocted by me. There can't be any problems. How about this, lock him up first, then we'll slowly think of a way." Long Feng and Long Yun could only nod. That's the only way. He had thought that as long as he caught this fellow and injected the hallucinogenic injection, he would be able to settle this matter. He didn't expect it to be so troublesome. Very quickly, the three of them brought Emosher away from here and locked him in a house beside the waterfall. There were people guarding the house. When Emosher saw this, he was secretly happy. He had completed the first step. Not long after, the door opened again. A woman wearing clothes that saved a lot of fabric walked in. This woman had a hot figure and a curvy figure. The places that should be fat were fat, and the places that should be thin were thin. She was truly a beauty of the world. With a charming smile on her face, she said to Emosher's clone, "Little handsome brother, why are you here alone? Is it lonely for you to leave your home and come to the dragon clan alone? Do you want your sister to talk to you and relieve your boredom?" As he spoke, he leaned towards Emosher's clone. When Emosher saw this, he was speechless. If he had known that there would be such an interrogation, his main body would have gone over. But now, this clone had taken advantage of him. That night, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun used all sorts of methods to torment Emosher's clone for the entire night. In the end, they didn't get any results. The next morning, the three of them dragged their exhausted bodies back to their respective residences. After Long Feng and Long Yun returned to their residences, they fell asleep. In order to catch this brat, they hadn't slept well these past few days. They hadn't slept for another night, so they were very sleepy. Now that they knew that this brat's motives weren't pure, they had caught him. They could finally have a good night's sleep. As for how to get that brat to explain himself, he would wait until they woke up. However, after Long Shuang returned to his residence, he did not rest. He had just obtained the dragon vein, and his heart was still warm. Now that he had some time, he could take the opportunity to cultivate. After cultivating for a full 3 hours, he finally put the dragon vein into the safe. After locking the safe at the head of the bed, he lay down on the bed and fell asleep in satisfaction. After another hour or so, Emosher waited for him to fall into a deep sleep before finally taking action. He had already used his camouflage concealment skill to hide in Long Shuang's room. At this moment, he quietly came to the head of the bed and reached out to grab the insurance cream. The insurance cream had a sensor. If anyone other than Long Shuang touched the safe, it would trigger an alarm. However, this device had long been destroyed by Emosher's dragon will. However, just as he obtained the safe, a figure suddenly appeared behind him without a sound. Emosher sensed the appearance of this figure and thought to himself, "Not good." He hurriedly tried to use teleportation to escape. A single teleportation was 1,000 kilometers away. At that time, no matter how strong the Dragon Clan's experts were, they wouldn't be able to catch up to him. However, when he used the Dragon Shadow Step, he found that he couldn't take this step at all. It was as if there was some kind of invisible imprisonment around the room. His Dragon Shadow Step couldn't be used at all. Emosher was a little flustered. He quickly turned his head around. The person behind him looked at Emosher with a smile and said indifferently, "Don't struggle in vain. Since you've been caught by me, do you still want to run?" Emosher had just used the Blood Dragon's eye to see. This person was actually a level 3 Desolate Hunter. It was equivalent to the Sea Dragon clone. This person was the Dragon Clan's Grand Elder. Emosher thought to himself, "Not good." He wasn't afraid of this person. He was afraid of being held back by this person. Once he was held back by him, the other experts of the Dragon Clan would rush over. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Thinking of this, he moved his mind. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the room. Ha! The Grand Elder originally thought that capturing Emosher was a sure thing. After all, he was a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. If he couldn't even catch a level 3 Desolate Hunter who was a level lower than him, it would be too embarrassing. However, the truth was that it was really embarrassing. That kid really disappeared in front of his eyes. He could feel that that guy didn't use teleportation to disappear, nor did he use a wormhole teleportation device. He had already locked down this room. It was impossible for him to use a teleportation skill or a device to disappear. Chapter 445. Before the Great Elder came, he had already ordered someone to tamper with this room. It was impossible to use teleportation or other teleportation devices to leave this room. However, he never expected that this fellow would actually disappear right under his nose just like that. This caused the Great Elder to be both surprised and angry. A mere level 3 Desolate Hunter had actually escaped right under his nose. This was simply preposterous. Get the spirit reader here. Quick! He let out an explosive roar. At this moment, Long Shuang had also been awakened. The first thing he did was to turn his head to look at the safe beside him. However, the safe had already disappeared. Long Shuang's shock was no small matter. Seeing that the Great Elder was in his room, he hurriedly stood up and asked, "Great Elder." "This," the Great Elder said. "Your dragon vein was stolen by that brat." When Long Shuang heard this, he could not believe it. "This, impossible, that brat is still locked up." "How?" the Great Elder cursed. "What we caught before was only that brat's clone. We were all deceived by him." When Long Shuang heard this, it was as if a bolt from the blue had struck him. One had to know that, with the dragon vein, he would have greater potential than the other geniuses. Even the next clan leader of the Dragon Clan was already in sight. Without the dragon vein, his cultivation speed would be much slower. Moreover, the path of cultivation was very long. Without the help of the dragon vein, who knew if other geniuses would catch up or even surpass him? At that time, the position of patriarch would be in jeopardy. Thinking of this, he suddenly jumped down from the bed. He hurriedly said, "Great Elder, where did that guy go? Let's chase after him." The Great Elder frowned. "I've cast a spatial imprisonment spell on your room. It's very difficult for him to escape. So the biggest possibility is that he's still in the room. However, he can use some kind of invisibility skill, so we can't find him for the time being." Long Shuang hurriedly looked around, but he did not find Emo. While they were talking, a spirit reader had already walked in. This spirit reader was one of the 2 level 8 spirit readers in the Dragon Clan. His hair was almost all gone, and only a few sparse strands of beard were left. At this moment, he felt a little regretful. Originally, he thought that the other spirit readers in the clan would be able to discover that kid and control his every move. Therefore, the 2 level 8 spiritual readers did not pay any attention to this place. Unexpectedly, that kid still managed to steal the dragon vein. What the hell was this bunch of trash doing? At the same time, he spread out his spiritual thoughts. First, they searched for Emo within a 200-kilometer radius. After a fruitless search, he used his spiritual senses to explore the entire house. He checked the people in and out of the house. He still couldn't find Emo. His eyebrows, which had almost no eyebrows, were tightly knitted together as he slowly shook his head. The first elder's heart sank when he saw this. In fact, he had already used thermal imaging, infrared scanning, laser scanning, life detector, and many other detection methods to explore this place. There was no discovery at all. Now, even a level 8 spiritual psyche master's spiritual thoughts could not detect it. Could it be that the kid had already escaped? How was this possible? How did he break through the shackles? Long Shuang was dumbfounded. He had just obtained the dragon vein, and he hadn't even cultivated much before the dragon vein was stolen. "That kid, when I find you, I'll definitely kill you." Seeing that he couldn't find anything, the first elder immediately ordered, "Seal off the entire Dragon Valley and let all the spirit readers investigate the Dragon Valley. All the Dragon Clan disciples, put down the work in your hands and search the Dragon Valley inch by inch. I don't believe that he can really disappear from the face of the earth." "Yes," the few people outside the door replied. At the same time, the first elder brought his men to the place where Emo's clone was imprisoned. However, he discovered that there was no longer Emo's clone. There was only a pile of meat paste. When Long Shuang saw this, he was filled with regret. Oh! At this time, Emo had already hidden in his miniature world. His miniature world was equivalent to a space independent of the world. Other people's telekinesis, infrared scanning, radar detection, and other methods could not affect his miniature world. The space imprisonment technique could not affect his miniature world at all. Emo had just discovered that the person behind him was a level 3 Great Desolate Master, and that he could not escape with his teleportation. So he immediately hid in there. However, it was easy to hide in, but how to get out was the biggest problem. At this moment, there were so many experts looking for him outside. If he really went out, he would probably be taken down in minutes. Emo shook his head helplessly. Looking at the beautiful scenery in the miniature world, he shook his head helplessly. Since he couldn't get out, he had to think of a way to fuse with the dragon vein first. Thinking of this, he took out the dragon vein that he had obtained first. This was formed from the fusion of two dragon veins. It was about 1/2 meter long, like the spine of some animal. Emoshur took out the dragon vein that he had just obtained. The moment this dragon vein appeared, the two dragon veins in Emoshur's hands seemed to have a gravitational force as they approached each other. Emoshur loosened his grip. Ka! The two dragon veins instantly stuck together. At the same time, the gap between the two dragon veins was rapidly disappearing. These two dragon veins began to fuse together at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, a faint light appeared above the two dragon veins. In a short 5 minutes, the gap between the two dragon veins completely disappeared. They fused into a complete dragon vein. This dragon vein was like the complete spine of some creature. It looked a little scary, but at this moment, Emoshur felt a strange sense of familiarity. He felt that this complete dragon vein seemed to contain some kind of huge power. That power was not the power of the physical body, nor was it the power of energy. It was a kind of power that could not be described clearly, but he could feel it. It was a kind of power that every dragon longed to have. When this thing appeared, Emoshur's heart started to beat wildly. He asked the system in his mind, "How do I fuse with the dragon vein?" The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face. "As long as you drip a few drops of blood on the dragon vein, your body will automatically fuse with the dragon vein." Emoshur nodded and cut the fingertip of his right hand. He dripped a few drops of blood on the dragon vein. Immediately, the dragon vein began to change rapidly. The surface of the sky began to quickly turn blood red, as if it was dyed red by blood. A moment later, some meat actually grew on the blood-red dragon vein. Thin and long tentacles grew out of the flesh. These tentacles seemed to be alive and stretched towards Emoshur's right hand. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.